Hello and welcome to another episode of BRCGS Bitesize, a new series of information and videos from BRCGS. The series will cover topics across the range of BRCGS products and services and will aim to answer questions posed by our customers. I'm your host, Barry Meikle, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Angela O'Donovan. Angela, hello, how are you?
Hi, Barry, I'm good. How are you?
Well, thank you. Angela, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself for the audience, please.
So hi, I'm Angela O'Donovan. I'm Head of Programmes at BRCGS. I joined about 5 years ago, and my job is about making sure that all of the standards are up to date and meet the requirements of the stakeholders.
Fantastic. So today we are here to talk about public consultations, a very important part of the standard development process. Can you just explain to us, please, what is a public consultation?
Sure. So when we develop a standard, this is not something that we can do by ourselves. And it's important that, even though we do develop it with a technical working group, it's important that once we have created a draft of the standard, of the new standard, that actually we give it out to the general public so they can have a view and have a read of it and contribute some feedback. It's important that they see the standard before it goes live, so that if there's anything that we've missed, if there's any clarifications we need to put into the new version, it's important that we capture that in advance of it going live. So it's very important that the public consultation is an official part of the process. It's also a GFSI requirement if the standard is GFSI benchmarked. But it is that very important step that those stakeholders that haven't had an opportunity to be part of the technical working group, for them to actually contribute in their way then. So actually we do have two opportunities to do public consultation in the process.
So could you tell me a little bit more about the process? And you mentioned the fact there's two opportunities for people to provide their feedback. Can you just tell me a little bit more about the process and how it goes, please?
Yeah. So basically, once the technical working group have created a draft, so if you imagine we have rewritten a standard, we've had probably maybe 10 technical working group meetings, we have created a draft version, and now what we want is the public to feed in their comments about what their opinion is of that proposed draft. So what we do is we create that draft in a format that is reasonably easy to read, and we advertise it on our social media platforms. So that could be through LinkedIn, it could be through our website. And what we do is we ask everybody to have a read of the standard and just feedback their comments. Now that standard it would just be in a Word document, and it will be attached to the social media communication, or it'll be on our website. And basically all stakeholders have to do is go through the standard, or they might just be an area that is of particular interest to them for them to read, because it's the document that we're sharing is not only all of the clauses, all of the requirements, but it will be a summary of the changes also to the protocol and anything that we feel that is important to the stakeholders. So what we will do is we will create a jot form for them to feedback their input. They can do it at clause level, or they can do it at, maybe just on the protocol. And they literally just fill out the jot form, email it back to us, and then we will collate all of that information into a central file and review it.
Okay. So why is the public consultation beneficial? What is BRCGS and then the wider development of the standard? How do we benefit from this process?
For us, it's very important that our standards are global standards. So it's not physically possible to have every stakeholder in the room when we're discussing the rewrite of the standard. So if you imagine, we would probably have about up to 35 members of a technical working group, and those they will represent every aspect of every stakeholder. So if you imagine, we will have manufacturers, we'll have retailers, accreditation bodies, certification bodies, technical experts, trade associations, specifiers, retailers. We'll have a representation of every stakeholder in the technical working group, and we will also have as many regions as possible, geographic regions represented, but we can't have everybody. If you imagine these standards are global, we have 35,000 certificated sites. So we want the views of those 35,000 certificate sites. We want their feedback on that standard because it is going to impact them. So it's very important that they are given a voice at the table as well to influence the standard. If there's anything, even because like I said, there are two, there's the public consultation before we start the rewrite process. So first of all, we will go ahead and ask them for feedback before we start the rewrite. So what are those topics? What are those pain points that you at your site you want us to address? So what is it, whether you're a customer or a specifier, what is it that you want the standard to address? Let's discuss that in the rewrite. And you tell us that either at the first public consultation or once we've written the standard and taken your feedback, and now here's your opportunity to have a look at it and see how we included it as you wanted us to in the standard. So that's the purpose of the second consultation, but it's that benefit that you have an opportunity to see what's coming and to really think, is it worded in a way that you understand, that's clear to you? Do we need to clarify the wording? If you imagine we are writing the draft in English and then it will be translated into several languages once it's published, but maybe the written English won't translate well, so please tell us, or if there's an ambiguity around a certain word we've used, because we're very conscious of what words we use. We try and use words that will translate and that are global. So it's very important that we really want the standard to be the best it possibly can be, and we cannot do that without everybody's input.
Fantastic. So then how is the feedback collated, and then what happens after the public consultation? How is the feedback we receive from stakeholders? How is it handled, and how is it managed?
Okay, so it all comes into a jot form, and we just put it all onto a spreadsheet, and we capture who has contributed what information, and it's important for us to understand the stakeholder, so what angle they're coming at when we capture this information. So on the jot form, you will be asked, who are you representing when you give this feedback? And then we take all of that feedback, collate it all onto a spreadsheet, and we then will look at, okay, sometimes people might tell us, maybe some grammatical errors or something that they might think needs to be changed, which we will separate that out because that's obviously a given, and that's not necessarily for the technical working group to discuss. We give that to our publications department. So Rhiannon, our head of publications, that's her responsibility to tidy up all that. So that's not necessarily discussed with the technical working group. The main parts that we want is what are the big topics and what are the trends that the feedback is telling us, and we will take all of that feedback and discuss it with the technical working group. So there might be some comments that may have been misunderstood, or that actually they've made a really good point and now we need to take it on board. So all of that feedback is then discussed with the technical working group prior to it being published. So we allow time in the process to have that time to review every single comment and address it as it needs to be addressed.
Fantastic. And you mentioned the different languages the standard might be translated into. Are people able to submit feedback on the public consultation in their own language, or must they submit it in English?
No, that's a really good point. They can actually submit it in any language they want. So preferably in the language that you feel most comfortable expressing it in, even though probably the jot form may not be in your language. So the jot forms are generally laid out, and the standard itself is going to be in English. The jot form may well be in English, or there might be one or two other languages, but you can respond in your own language, and what we will then use is we will translate that so that we understand it. I would rather you actually used your own language to express your feedback, rather than try and put it into English if English is not your first language, because you will get your message across much clearer in your own language.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that'll help to inform the standard development a lot better than somebody who's maybe not comfortable writing as much in English. So, Angela, I just want to thank you for your time today for talking about the public consultations. Thank you very much, and we will see you again on the next episode of BRCGS Bitesize. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye-bye.